up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in for episode number 21 at the Warehouse Underground podcast, Real Talk for warehouse, DC, and FC professionals of all levels around the globe. I'm Ben, the host of the show, and joining me on the show today is a fantastic guest that I am super excited and honored to have on. His name is Will Quinn, better known as the Distribution Guy. Now, when you carry a nickname like that in the industry, people are going to research your background, just like I do all my guests before they come on the show. And Will Quinn's experience and, frankly, contribution to the warehousing and distribution industry is awesome. He himself has been in the industry for more than 25 years, a leader at all levels, from the floor to the boardroom to the offices and everywhere in between. He has his own consulting firm helping optimize operations around the country. He is a published author. He has almost 100 articles published on various websites about warehousing and distribution and supply chain. He is a sought-after public speaker and has spoke at many well-known conferences in this space. And I know he has a couple that are coming up that I saw on his website. And he is a professor giving back to the next generation of leaders in the industry. So I'm super excited to have him on the show. Sometimes on the show, I wish I could just sit back and listen. But this time I'm the one driving the questions, and I'm happy to do that for all of you, and honored to have Will Quinn on the show. So with that, I will bring him on the stage. Will, thank you very much for joining the Warehouse Underground podcast. It is an honor. How are you today, my friend?
Ben, thanks so much for having me. Thank you much for the kind introduction. I'm excited to be here in the Warehouse Underground.
Yeah, you got it, my friend. Now, I teased this a little bit in the intro, but when I looked at your background, it is so extensive. I mean, I can't do it justice. So people have to go check it out for themselves. But just tell a little bit to the audience about your background in your own words, kind of what led you to where you are today, and what have you done in the world of distribution?
Sure. Well, I cut my teeth in supply chain and logistics in the Marine Corps. So I spent 12 years in the Marine Corps, half of that on active duty and half of that in the active reserves in supply chain and logistics and distribution. I got my bachelor's degree following active duty, stayed in the reserves, did both of those, started writing a little bit, started working at Roadway Express as an LTL company. I did that for like 7 years. And then I got into distribution, started working for a company called Coca-Cola. You may have heard of them.
I have.
Production warehouse management. They kind of gave me an introduction to raw materials and full goods and rotation and good manufacturing processes, all that sort of stuff. Setting up a warehouse, making things efficient, that sort of thing. Then moved on to distribution for Coca-Cola, getting all of the warehouse stuff and the soda and the juices on the trucks and then delivered to the stores. So that was exciting. Spent about 7 years at Coca-Cola. And I wanted to stay in Chicagoland. So if I wanted to move up, I had to move to different companies. So my next stop was at a company called WEG Electric. It's a Brazilian based motor company. So electric motors, drives, that sort of thing. We had a small shop that did modifications to motors. So that was pretty interesting. It had some work with 3PL supporting some Jewel Osco buildings. So interesting seeing the 3PL side, a couple 1 million square foot buildings. Million of that was dry goods and then 1 million square feet of refrigerated. With a part of that, it was a freezer, largest freezer I ever saw, 300,000 square feet of freezer.
Wow.
Yeah. It was huge. I went on to get my master's degree from Elmhurst University in supply chain. And then went on to work for a company called MSC Industrial Supply. So I kind of used that as capstone. Took a building that had 3 other buildings of inventory put into it, kind of just retooled it, laid out everything, and made that thing hum. Worked at at Cintas for a small period of time. So
Yep.
clothing manufacturers, all of the shirts that get embroidered and the hats and all that kind of good stuff. And spent a couple years, a little bit at Granger,
Mhm.
another company you had heard of, inventory
Yep.
control, quality control, another huge 1 million square foot building, and another offsite facility, 3PL. We housed a lot of inventory at. And then the last 4 years, I spent at a company called Infor. It's a global software company. That's where I kind of um, created the distribution guy persona. I
Yeah.
had that trademarked. That was a process,
Love it.
and that's when I started writing and developing relationships with the buying groups and the associations, and then attending those events, speaking at those events, that sort of thing. That's basically been my career. And I started doing some consulting, uh,
Mhm.
going to companies and just taking a look at their warehouses, because I did that some of that at Infor, and now it's just like, you know, um, companies, they get busy and they grow and they have a warehouse, and then the things are laid out a certain way, and then you add on a service or you add something else, there's more expansion, you add some racking, and then pretty soon it doesn't make any sense. Like, well, why would we
Yep.
put them together? Well, it made sense at the time, and then the business evolved. And sometimes, just having a fresh pair of eyes come and take
Yep.
a look. They say, well, if you do these 4 or 5 things, you're gonna make the operation. That's why I do some of that now.
Yeah, it's like a Frankenstein, a Franken build. I think people think, "We'll just make it happen now. Just make it happen now. We'll worry about it down the road. We'll worry about it down the road." And at
Mhm.
some point, down the road comes, and somebody has to kind of solve in and peel it back. I love all that. Now let me ask you this question, Will. So I mean, your background is just so vast. I mean, there's so many different things that you've done and things that you've been a part of and organizations and the like. And I I talk about this a lot that sometimes in this industry you don't always see that. You see a lot of people that, hey, I'm a floor manager, now I'm an ops manager, now I'm a senior ops manager, and I just keep going. But it looks like for you, your career has so much breadth and scope to it. Is that something that you thought about in the beginning when you started your career as something that you kind of want to design it that way? Or did it just sort of happenstance? I mean, did you just sort of stumble into it? Because I wouldn't say that that's exactly the norm for what I see with careers in the industry.
Yes, it's into like I stumbled into it, into supply chain logistics, because that's the job the Marine Corps gave me.
Yeah.
They put me into supply. I was undecided when I went in, and so they gave me that job. And it's been a great career. What I would say is, you know, had I wanted to move, right, to relocate my family all over, I probably still would be with Coca Cola, right?
Hmm.
Because they wanted to, after a certain amount of years, they wanted to promote me, move me out
Yeah.
to the place that was Pittsburgh, to be more of a regional guy running several production facilities and distribution facilities. And I just wasn't interested in that. I mean, I personally have went to 11 different schools as a kid, and I
Mm.
got five, and I just didn't want them to have that life. So for my career, if I wanted to do something different, I had to move. So that's what happened. So indeed, yeah. But you're right. Like, I would see a lot of folks going from Coca Cola to Pepsi to
Yeah.
RC to Seven Up, and I just didn't follow. When I moved, it was to something different. I mean, it's all supply chain and distribution, but it was from freight to pop to Coca Cola to electric motors to
Yeah.
industrial supply to 3PL. So and that's what kind of really set me up for that position I had it in for. Or like,
Mm.
well, you know, we know the industry, you know a lot of they call micro verticals within the industry. And that's why they wanted me for that breadth of industry knowledge that I had.
Yeah. Now, I mean, speaking of the industry, I mean, I know you travel around the country. I know you speak. I know you're in facilities all the time. What do you think about the state of the distribution industry now? I mean, what do you think about how things are inside of FCs and DCs, and how do you see it maybe changing over the next 5 to 10 years? Because it seems to me like things are accelerating very fast. Warehousing may have looked completely different 15 years, 10 years ago than it looks now. So what do you think about the state of the industry now and where it's heading?
Well, it's pretty exciting. If you look at, they say distribution centers now or 15 years ago, if you like a good example is if you ever been to the show ProMat.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
remember going to those in the 90s, and you maybe see one or two robotics companies there, right? And when you go there now, there's hundreds. There's all these AI companies popping up, and there's lots of companies that are introducing robotics and automation to make things easier, right? To make things more efficient. Something that the auto manufacturing industry did a long time ago, and
Yeah.
now we're seeing that in distribution. But it's an $8 trillion industry employing millions and millions and millions of people. And, with e-commerce booming and more warehouses being built all the time, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah, it's one of those industries that, during the pandemic that was considered
Oh.
mandatory
Oh
and
yeah.
necessary. Folks needed to, you couldn't, like when I was at Granger at the time during the pandemic, and obviously you can't ship from the house. Like you had to go to work. And if you think about, everything that's in your studio, that's in my house, at some point went through a distributor, from
Yep.
clothes I'm wearing to the electrical that's in the walls to the sheetrock to everything went through some sort of distributor, the food that's up in the refrigerator. So, I mean, America doesn't run, and we don't have the lifestyle that we have without distributors and manufacturers.
Yeah.
And it's
And
not
I,
going to be anytime soon.
yeah, and I've said this before on other shows, other podcasts, or online, where if you look at the caliber of people that you find in fulfillment centers now and leadership roles, I mean, it is some of the highest hiring bar of any companies that you see out there. Maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you find some really sharp people with some high level degrees, but now everywhere you go, you get all these young grads in tech and Georgia Tech and all these high end tech schools, and it just seems like the dynamics and the sort of the stereotype of what it means to work in distribution has changed now because of the things that you said with the how the country relies on it, how people rely on it. Well, that creates a lot of pressure on FCs to really perform, I think, to meet that demand. And they've got to match that with high caliber people that are working in there. Not that there wasn't high caliber people in there back in the old days, but I think now I think people would be, I think the average American would be very surprised if they toured 10 fulfillment centers around the country and just stop and talked with a lot of the leaders in there. I think they would be very surprised at how impressive and how sharp they are. And you have a front row seat for that, so it's awesome.
Well, I think there's been a recognition by the C-suite that warehousing and distribution can be a point of differentiation,
Uh,
right?
Competitive advantage. You're right.
Yeah. So either you can view it as a cost center and not invest much into it, and maybe not have a good customer experience, or you can invest in the warehouse and invest in distribution, and then have that, have your inventory accuracy super high, have your throughput high, have processes documented so that you have a consistent customer experience, and you can
Yep.
you can use that to get more business.
Yeah, and there's so much riding on it too now because information travels so fast. Word of mouth travels so fast. You get a customer with a bad experience with delivery or shipment to customers, and now that spreads to 100, just like that. And you gotta, I mean, for better for worse, you just have to be understanding and receptive of that, I think, if you are a leader. But let me ask this question. I mean, speaking of the people, I mean, in the industry, and you mentioned ProMat. Hey, if you go to ProMat, it's robotics everywhere. Automation is the buzzword. Robotics is the buzzword. AI is coming on strong. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But for the employees that are working out there in the distribution centers or the fulfillment centers of the warehouse, I mean, they hear all that. They hear that these are the things that are coming down the pipe, and it's not going to replace your job and the whole thing, but they're still a little bit apprehensive about it. But where do you see it? I mean, now that all these high tech things are coming down the pipe and coming down the pipe quickly, where does pure ability and pure skill and pure leadership rank? I mean, has that shifted below? Has that dropped a couple of notches on the totem pole in terms of importance, or do you think maybe it's gone up a little bit with the frontline employees that are out there running and leading?
Well, your ability to lead, teach, and coach is going to differentiate, right? I mean, as long as there's people in the warehouse, in these distribution centers, you're
Yep.
going to need leaders, and it's going to be more important than ever, right? Your ability, being able to counsel and coach and teach and lead, it will continue to be important. Now, there are some facilities that are 100% robots, right? It's dark. Do you need to lead, teach, and coach robotics? No.
I don't know.
There's other
Yeah.
positions. Now the robots don't take care of themselves yet, right?
Yeah.
So there's other roles and other positions that will come that those robots will be replacing. I mean, it's just the cycle of technology, right? I mean, if then you go back, a little bit in time, where everybody got around on horses.
Yeah.
And in these big cities, there was tens of thousands of people employed to go around and shovel horse poo from the
Hmm.
streets. That was a job. Now,
Hmm.
when cars came through, we lost all those jobs, but then we got better jobs making
Yep.
cars. So what the next jobs are going to be, that when robots are doing just about everything, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that's going to be something. But to your question about leadership and leading people, that's always going to be a great skill that's needed.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, and maybe I'm sure you agree with me on this, that if you go to a big distribution center or fulfillment center anywhere in the United States that has a lot of staff, it is going to be one of the most diverse group one of that most diverse labor forces that you'll find anywhere. I mean, warehouses and DCs have people from all colors, creeds, walks of life, demographic, you name it, in there. And so I've always felt like the leaders that are leading inside fulfillment centers need to be some of the best because they have this huge range of the type and caliber of people that they're leading. And that's not something that naturally comes to people. So yeah, you're right. Yes, okay, there are some fully dark operations out there, but there for that to be the mainstay, that's still a little bit away. I think, and I've said this before on the show too. Like, yeah, I understand that self-driving cars is the rage and everybody talk about them, but when I drive on the road, most of the cars that I see is a Toyota Camry. And I think you kind of see that in warehouses too. Like, yeah, the technology and the robots get all the hype, but if you go to pick 25 random warehouses, they're gonna have a little bit of that, but they're still relying heavily on the people and their ability to lead, and even more so now because of just how much diversity there is in there, which I think is great. I think is awesome. I think that's a point of pride, in my opinion, for people that work in this industry. So
That's one of the reasons why it was an easy and natural transition coming
yeah,
out of the military and then into the industry.
yep.
'Cause that's what the military looked like, and that's what warehouses, distribution centers look like.
Yep. That's one of the beautiful things about the military. I'm sure everyone can agree on that. So now let me transition a little bit. So you're a consultant, or you've done a lot of consulting. I know you have a website, and I'll put the website to your a link to your website up on my website when people come check out the podcast. But I always ask this question to people that do this, that consultants, because you travel around from all these different sites. I mean, when you do that, do you like what's your mindset when you go into a facility for the first time? I mean, do you ever carry biases with you that you're not aware of? Because I worked at this facility and I'm plugging them into the same box as what I used to, or do you not do that? And how do you go about formulating your plan of attack and your strategy for when a facility hires you as a consultant to come in and really help them out? Walk us through what a day in the life, or a month in the life, is like when you go for that.
Sure. Well, I think my time in the military kind of helped prime me for this because, you move from duty station to duty station
Yep.
and you get a fresh start and everything's different. And so, and then moving from company to company, this earlier in my career was the same thing. Yeah. I mean, if you look at warehousing, from its basic standpoint, there's not a whole lot of difference between managing a warehouse full of Coca-Cola to managing a warehouse full of motors. Is rotation more important with the pop? Yeah. But is it demand planning? Is it inventory control? Is it rotation? Is it shipping? Is it all those kind of things are the same? It's just there's some subtle changes between the different micro verticals. But the big difference is in the people and what happened beforehand. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important when you first go into a facility is take a step back and say, listen, whoever was in here running this before did it to the best of their ability based on the information, the knowledge, and the experience they had. Right. So what you can do is go in and just start poo-pooing all over what has been done, right, wrong, or different, because again, you're dealing with people. Right?
Yep.
If it was robots, well, you could just say, well, how they're doing that doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah.
dealing with people that have worked in a facility for years and they just don't know any better, or it's just over time it turned into Frankenstein. You know what? They sometimes they're just doing the best they can to try to get orders out, and that higher level of planning and doing spaghetti diagrams and those kind of things just kind of gets left off the wayside. So it's real important that what I do is I talk to folks. I sit down and say, um, what do you like? Well, what do you don't like? If you were in charge, what things would you differently and why? And they'll tell the story, and then you can see what happens. And then I've just found that approach it's much more well received because sometimes company, just like when people are apprehensive about automation or AI, the same way can happen when a consultant comes in. Oh, this guy's just coming to see who he can get fired. Most of the time, that's not the case. Do some people do that? Sure. But most of the times, companies want to make it get better. They want to be able to increase their throughput without just saying everybody work faster. So I think that's the approach that I take. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, and it's great to get that perspective, because not everybody gets the chance to do this, to go around and see all different facilities and everything. And so I think when somebody has that vantage point, it's really valuable, because most people are just sort of pigeonholed in the area that they work. Now, let me ask you this. So I know you've written articles about this, and I've read your articles about this, but AI, right? So AI is very hot, coming on like a tidal wave, and people, I think, need to understand that you can't just put your head in the sand and pretend like it's not, just because you don't understand it or you don't want it to be. It's coming on like a tidal wave. But for distribution, supply chain distribution, what do they need to know in your mind about AI? I mean, what should they internalize about it? What should be the takeaway?
So first thing I will say is AI is just a tool.
Hmm.
Right. I think about it, I'd put it in terms, say, listen, it's a forklift. All right.
Yep.
Am I able to move more inventory around using a forklift or a pallet jack? Well, obviously, with a forklift, I can move
Yep.
more stuff around. Same thing with artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? It allows you to use the data that the distributor has to make decisions and give you that information so that you can make decisions faster and easier, right? It's all things. One of the things I was doing it Infor was working with our artificial intelligence teams, the data scientists, because they knew how to program all that. That's not me. That's not my forte. I don't know how to do that, but I do know how to run distribution centers. So we would work, or I would work with the AI folks and say, listen, how can we use this in a warehouse? And so I'll give you any good examples. When you go on to Amazon and you go to purchase something, down towards the bottom, it'll say, well, people who bought this also may have bought this or this. You say, okay, well, how could you use that in a warehouse? Like, why is that important? It's like, well, if 50% of the time they're purchasing item A, they also buy item B, well, maybe you can slot those two items next to each other. Right. So going through and finding those matches, which, you can intuitively say, well, if someone's buying a toilet, they're going to buy the bowl, they're going to buy the tank, they're probably going to buy a toilet seat. I can probably slot those next to each other. But there's a lot of other stuff that you wouldn't intuitively think that would go next to each other that you can use that in slotting. So that's the kind of work I was doing with the data scientists to put real use cases to make artificial intelligence useful in a warehouse.
Yeah, and I've told that to some warehouse leaders out there. I mean, warehouse leaders are notorious for complaining about forecasts, right? The sales forecast, the actual sales didn't match the forecast, and so we didn't know how to staff and everything. And I say, well, that's what AI is helping with that. I mean, it is doing a better job at predicting what people are going to do at a level that humans just cannot do. So why wouldn't you want that? You would definitely want that. You would be able to run a much leaner operation. It would be much better for you. So I think you're right. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of how AI can be used in the supply chain. And I know it's being used heavier on the front end, on the procurement end and the purchasing end. But I think that's going to start in the DCs. You will see the downstream effects of that, and the slotting is a perfect example of how that could come. So I totally see that. Now,
Yeah, I was just at distribution strategy groups applied for AI for distribution conference. It's the
yep,
only conference in the United States dedicated to AI for distribution. And there was dozens and dozens of companies having artificial tools specifically to help distributors, right?
yep,
I mean, a big one was a company that deals in returns. Like,
ooh,
I hated returns. I couldn't stand dealing with returns when I was running a DC. You know why? Because they didn't add value, right?
no,
They were just a cost.
no,
I wasn't. I didn't see either that I was helping a customer ship an order out.
no.
But that's an important how you handle returns is an important part of that customer's experience. So if you can have artificial intelligence help you manage those returns and those warranties and things like that, you're going to make your customers happy. So
Yep. And there's some companies out there and some people that I'm trying to bring onto the podcast. I mean, there's AI that's designing layouts. I mean, I've seen that AI design and layouts of facilities and racking and aisles and changing it and the whole thing. And so I don't know how it's doing that. I don't know the logic behind that. I'm curious to learn more, but I know that that's out there. So
well, you
let's.
with a digital twin,
Yep.
right? So you've got even before you build the facility, you can build it in cyberspace and start messing with it and to find, okay, this is where my
You got bottleneck here.
ASRS is going to ASRS is going to go. This is where my conveyor is going to go. I'm going to receive through here. This is where my quality checks are. It's going to flow through, all that stuff, and see how it goes. Instead of, basically you're doing an electronic spaghetti diagram before you even build it. If the green, with the green skin, no,
The greenfield.
greenfield, yeah, as opposed to brownfield. Thank you.
Well, I mean, and like when you get up, when you talk about, and we'll get into the question here in a second about layout and design, and we'll talk about modular design, because I love your thoughts on that. But I mean, if it's to the point where you can just hit enter on a program type thing and it spits out different scenarios and different models, I would totally be for that. Because I know a lot of people, when they are talking about layout of a facility, they tend to fall in love with the one that they create. You know what I mean? Like, I like this layout and this is my thing. And then it's very hard to budge them off of that. But I don't understand why people get so possessive of that. I mean, I do sort of understand, but really, to the operators that are out there running the floor, which is really the people that matter, they couldn't give two craps about what the layout is. They just want the one that's going to operate the best for them, that's going to allow them to achieve the best throughput and the best safety and all that, no matter what it is. And so if AI can accomplish that, and oh, by the way, it might change over time, I think that's a big win for operators out there. So,
well, you are dealing with people.
Yep.
Nobody wants to hear that their baby is ugly. But again, at the time, it might have been a great layout. But businesses change; they evolve. You add more value-added services. You parts of the business grow and can see. So over time, it's not something you want to just start tearing your DC apart every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, and to use a sports analogy, Will, because I know you're a Bears fan, because I see the Brian Urlacher jersey back there. But in sports, the football teams that struggle are the ones that can't make adjustments fast enough. Like we have this is the plays that we're going to run, and this is our strategy. Well, if the defense or the offense is changing, you have to be willing to adjust and to change that. And if you get stuck in the mud of, nope, this is our strategy, this is what we do, okay, well, you're going to lose in the NFL. The teams that win adjust and change and are modular to that level. And I think in the warehousing world, I think they should take a page from how NFL teams are run, either on offense or defense. Always change it. Always change it.
No, 100%. If you're the OC and you're married to a specific offensive strategy, but it doesn't match your players' abilities, it's not going to be successful.
Nope. And especially now, I mean, like customer, we have more algorithms and everything, but the customer expectation is different. They're ordering way more things, and you got to be flexible. I mean, you got to be modular. You have to be willing to adjust to that. And some of those old archaic warehouses, I think, are supposed to be a tool for the operators, but they're really more of like a statue. And they really find themselves, I think the operators find themselves working around it more so than they are working inside it. And it's not working for them. They're working against it. So, but let me ask this question, right? So you have talked about this. I've seen this with modular warehouse layouts, which I love. So how did you arrive at that? Because the old way of thinking is, this is what we build. These are our racks. They're planted to the ground and we go. But it seems like, mobile stack racks and things that can shift around the warehouse are growing out there. And you see warehouse designs that are modular now, much more than a statue. How did you arrive at that? Because I love that philosophy. I love that thought process that you have behind that.
Yeah, it really depends on the business model, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got 4 or 5 widgets that you bring in your facility and you ship them out and it's always the same, well, there's no need to change.
Yeah.
But if you're a 3PL and you have different customers, especially within the same 4 walls, being able to adjust how you store things, how you manage, how you move the inventory through is super important so that you can deliver value whilst also making money, right? So that's the again, it really depends on what you're doing and what kind of
Yeah.
inventory, what kind of value added services is going to drive that need to modulate and be able to move your facility around without having to pull up permanently
Yep.
stored items.
Yep. No, I agree with you 100% on that. And so I think that's the wave of the future. I mean, goods to person is probably the next wave. I know there's a lot of things behind that, but it doesn't always apply to every product. Some products don't work well for goods to person. So, but I think modular is the way. So, all right, Will. So you're a vet. You're a Marine Corps vet. I'm an Air Force veteran. This is a little special part of the show, really, just for vets that are in the service now or transitioning. So, what do you tell? What do you say to vets who are in the service right now and considering a career in distribution and vice versa? I mean, what would you say to companies out there considering hiring them?
Well, I'd say you're going to bring in somebody that has leadership
Yeah,
and can work with people. And then as a career, it's a great career. I mean, it's so diverse. I mean, I've only worked for a couple of companies, but you said it's pretty broad and again, everything that goes it's in my house or in your studio had went through a distributor. It's
yeah,
$8 trillion, 6 million plus people, so
not
many,
going anywhere.
and so there's tons and tons of opportunity, and it's not really something that you see in school. Nobody goes up and says, I want to grow up and I want to be an inventory analyst. I
Yeah,
could be a doctor, lawyer, policeman, firefighter, the military, that sort of thing. But there's so many different jobs that can be done supporting distributors and manufacturers. So I would say I would encourage everybody to take a look at it. And there's a lot of programs now that are offering undergrads with specialization in supply chain and masters and programs in supply chain management.
yeah, I agree, and I say this to vets sometimes too. there's no there's no SOP for how to have a successful distribution career. I mean, there's no really SOP to how to be a leader inside of a fulfillment center or a distribution center. A lot of it is can you just figure out your own way. You take the traits about you that work best, you apply them, they're probably going to work, and then you learn the rest. You learn what you need to know, and I think that's a great part about it. But sometimes in the military there's a manual, there's a 3-1 in the Air Force, there's things that you follow. But I tell people out here, there are some things, and some things are coming online, but outside of that, though, it is a big, wide runway to have a successful career in, and they already have the hardest part to learn, I think, which is the leadership and the ability to troubleshoot and problem solve and think on their feet and prioritize. That's what you do every day in a fulfillment center. So I love that. I love that message that you're passing out to vets. I think I might post some of this on some veteran transition group pages on LinkedIn and see if I can get that out there to benefit some of the folks. So, all right. So now we get to the most important. Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
What I would add to that is
Yeah.
I think the base is having a genuine care for people and wanting to see them succeed, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
something I struggled with early in my career. Is like, well, I just saw people in the warehouse as a way to get things done. I'm following orders. This is yours, and I'll go do it.
Yeah.
Not everybody works like that. So that's I mean, that was something I had to work on was my communication style. Not everybody likes that direct.
Yep.
Got into that in my latest article. But not everybody likes that direct communication. So being able to communicate with people so that they understand and respect you, and that you respect them. Again, you see you're starting off as a premise is that you genuinely care for the people that you work with, and that's when I saw my career really kind of try to take off. Was when you do that, and that's something that you can learn in the military, but it's a different type of leadership.
It is. It is. I say that too. Like the spectrum, the diversity spectrum that you manage in the military is whew, narrow. call it, as compared to what it is inside of a fulfillment center or a DC. And so in some ways, it's even more of a leadership challenge, not in other ways, but in some ways, it's more of a leadership challenge, I think, leading inside of a fulfillment or a distribution center than it is in the military. Not all, right? I'm not equating the two, but some make it more challenging, at least for me. All right, let me ask this question, Will. So I follow you on LinkedIn, and by the way, if you're listening to the show and you don't follow Will Quinn on LinkedIn and you are following me and somehow not him, you definitely should do that right away. Like stop the show and go follow him, because the stuff coming out of him is just incredible. The wisdom and the knowledge and the expertise is all free. All free. What's on LinkedIn? A wealth of knowledge. But I do have to ask you one question though, and that is when you post the AI generated superheroes of yourself, right? And they're like a 60% copy of you. How many do you go through? I want to know this. How many do you go through before you get to the final one? Because I use AI generated images on my website and for the posters of my show, and it doesn't usually spit out something that you like on the very first try. You got to keep putting it in there. So how many do you go through before you actually post the top guy online?
Oh, that's funny. I'll be interested. It's just been in the last couple of months that that OpenAI and ChatGPT 4.0 have really kind of got their images so that they're better. Because a lot, just it was
Six
just
fingers and
six to 8 months ago, where the extra fingers, words were misspelled,
Yep.
and it just was a mess. And when they changed it to where it was when it loads now, it just comes from the top and goes down, and it's making everything perfect. And now they're great. So when I'm doing that's my Friday fun with AI segment.
I like it. I follow it.
When I'm adding in that prompt, I'm also saying, use this picture. I'm attaching a picture of myself. So it's typically my LinkedIn profile picture. So I'm saying, okay, create this superhero here based on me. Here's a picture of me. And then usually the first time around, it's fine.
But do you go in there and go, no, the abs need to be much more cut? Yeah, I would like the abs to be more cut on this.
I would like the abs to be cut right now, but that was 25 years ago when I was in the service. So no, actually, it's pretty fun. It just usually the first time around, whatever, I'll go with whatever it gives me. And it's usually pretty, you've seen them. They're pretty fun.
They're good. Yeah, no, they're good. I
something new tomorrow.
I look forward to them. I'm jealous. Will, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm jealous of them. This is a long-winded way to say that. All right. So where can people find out more about you? I mean, Will, you're all over the place online. You've got your own website. I know you contribute to other websites and you're at conferences. If people want to get more of you and work with you, and where do they go? I mean, where do you direct people to go to? How can they help support you and what you're trying to do?
Well, first thing I would say is, everybody who's listening or watching that is following me and is not following you, follow you, right? So you've got your own website. So I have the distributionguy.com. Okay. You have my LinkedIn profile. That's where you can find me. And if you've got questions, happy to help and answer those questions. I get them a lot.
I bet. Where are you speaking at next?
So my next speaking engagement will be at the Third Stage Consulting Stratosphere 2025 later this month in Denver, Colorado. So Third Stage Consulting, they are a tech agnostic technology selector and implementer. So what they do is they don't take money from the different software companies, and they can come in, take a look at your business and say, based on your operation, we think this ERP or this WMS or YMS or MES or whatever it is you're looking for would better suit your operation. And then they can help you with the implementation or the change management or whatever it takes so that there's a successful implementation of whatever software you're looking for.
I gotcha. That sounds really cool. Awesome. Well, man, Will, thank you again for coming on the show. Like, this is great. Yeah, I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge. I'm honored to speak with you and have you on here. And I hope that you have great success in your career. And I appreciate and respect, I really do, all of the contributions that you've made to the industry and continue to make. So, very respectable. Thank you very much again.
Ben, thanks so much for having it. And I love what you're doing here with the Warehouse Underground.
Awesome. Take care, Will. I appreciate it, man. Good, go Bears, right?
Go Bears.
Take care, my friend. See you.
Thank-
All right, guys, that concludes today's show. Thank you again, Will Quinn, for coming on to talk about incredible stuff. Like, I mean what I say. If you don't follow him online, you should follow him online. He's a fantastic resource. Again, I'm honored to have him on the show. And I'm going to be sending Will some special gifts for our appreciation of coming on the show. So as the Warehouse Underground goes, that concludes this episode. Remember, sign up for the community if you have not already done so. I think we have 178 members of the community now. Cool stuff going on in there. Message boards and networking and information share and some live events. And so if you're not part of the community, do that. Check out the Tiger Team. Episode number 5 should be coming out in a couple of weeks. And that's a show with wit, humor, and sarcasm, which is a little bit different from this show, but I think you guys will like it if you haven't checked that out. And as today goes, thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you next week for episode number 22. Thank you. God bless.